Left for dead. The crimson dust of Kepler 442 bits swirled around the abandoned mining facility like ghostly fingers reaching for the dying twin suns. Commander Sarah Chen pressed her back against the corroded metal wall, feeling the vibrations of the departing Zephyrian transport ships fade into the alien sky. Her left shoulder throbbed where the energy blast had caught her, and she could taste blood where her teeth had cut her lip during the fall. Beside her, 16-year-old Emma Chen sat with her knees drawn up, her dark hair matted with the strange orange dust that seemed to coat everything on this forsaken world. The girl's tablet lay cracked across her lap, its screen flickering between static and fragments of data she had been analyzing before their world turned upside down. "Mom," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible above the howling wind that swept across the barren landscape. "They really left us here, didn't they?" Sarah turned to look at her daughter, seeing her own determination reflected in those young eyes. Emma had inherited more than just her mother's stubborn streak. The girl possessed a brilliant mind that could adapt to almost any situation, a trait that had made her invaluable during their diplomatic missions across the Outer Rim territories. "Yes, sweetheart, they did." Sarah's voice carried the weight of betrayal, but also something else. A cold anger that had been building since Admiral Vextar had smiled that reptilian smile and ordered their execution. But that was their first mistake. The facility around them told the story of hasty abandonment. Mining equipment lay scattered and broken, as if the workers had fled in panic. Massive drilling rigs stood silent like metal dinosaurs, their drill bits still embedded in the planet's crust. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows that danced across the walls, powered by geothermal generators that had been running unmanned for months. Emma struggled to her feet, wincing as movement aggravated her bruised ribs. The explosion that had thrown them from the transport platform had been meant to kill them instantly, but humans had a way of surviving things that should have been fatal. She limped over to one of the control panels, running her fingers across the alien symbols etched into the metal. "This isn't just a mining facility," she said, her voice gaining strength as her analytical mind engaged with the puzzle before her. "Look at these power readings. The energy consumption is way too high for standard excavation operations." Sarah pulled herself upright, fighting through the pain in her shoulder. Years of military training had taught her to compartmentalize injury and focus on survival. She moved to stand beside her daughter, studying the incomprehensible readouts that somehow made sense to Emma's young mind. "What are you thinking?" Sarah asked, knowing that her daughter's insights had saved their lives more than once during their travels through contested space. Emma's fingers flew across the control interface, adapting to the alien technology with the intuitive understanding that had made her a legend among the tech specialists in the human colonial fleet. Lines of data scrolled past on the main display, painting a picture that made her pulse quicken with possibility. "It's a communication hub," she breathed, excitement creeping into her voice despite their desperate situation. This whole facility was built around a quantum entanglement communicator. They were using the mining operation as cover for intelligence gathering across this entire sector. Sarah felt hope kindle in her chest, like a small flame in the darkness. "Can you get it working?" "Maybe." Emma was already pulling components from her damaged tablet, improvising connections with spare parts scattered around the facility. "The main array is offline, but there's a backup system that runs on the geothermal grid. If I can bypass the security protocols and jury-rig a compatible interface." While her daughter worked with focused intensity, Sarah moved to the facility's observation deck. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum windows, she could see the Zephyrian fleet maintaining orbit above the planet. 3 massive dreadnoughts hung in the purple sky like harbingers of doom, their weapon arrays trained on the surface below. Admiral Vextar would be aboard the flagship, probably celebrating what he believed was the elimination of the 2 most troublesome humans in this sector of space. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding aggressively for decades, consuming smaller civilizations and forcing them into slavery or extinction. They viewed humans as particularly annoying insects, too stubborn to be properly enslaved, and too clever to be easily exterminated. Got it. Emma's triumphant shout echoed through the facility. Mom, the communicator is online. I've got about 3 minutes before their monitoring systems detect the signal, but I can punch through their jamming field. Sarah rushed back to her daughter's side, her military mind already formulating the message that might save not just their lives, but potentially turn the tide of the war that had been brewing between humanity and the Empire. Emma's makeshift interface crackled with energy as she established the connection. Who are we calling? Rex Morrison, Sarah said without hesitation. If anyone's crazy enough to mount a rescue operation in Empire territory, it's him. The transmission array hummed to life, sending a burst of quantum-encrypted data across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. On the screen, Captain Rex Morrison's weathered face appeared, his trademark grin faltering as he took in their situation. Sarah, what the hell are you doing on Kepler 442 bits? That's deep in Empire space. Long story, Rex. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they trace this signal. Vextar betrayed us. Emma and I are stranded at coordinates I'm sending now. The Empire thinks we're dead. Rex's expression hardened. Behind him, Sarah could see the bridge of his ship, the Defiance, alive with activity as his crew prepared for immediate departure. How many ships does Vextar have? 3 dreadnoughts, full battle group. Rex, this isn't just about rescuing us. I've got intelligence on their next target. They're planning to hit the civilian colonies in the Centauri system. Emma's hands flew over the controls as she monitored the Empire's scanning frequencies. 30 seconds, Mom. They're triangulating our position. Rex leaned forward, his eyes blazing with the intensity that had made him a legend among the human resistance fighters. Sarah, listen to me. Can you hold out for 6 hours? We'll have to. Good. I'm bringing the whole pack. It's time these scaled bastards learned what happens when you mess with human families. The transmission flickered as Empire countermeasures began to interfere with the signal. Tell Emma that Uncle Rex is coming to visit, and he's bringing presents. The connection died just as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emma quickly shut down their improvised communicator, but they both knew it was too late to avoid detection. Above them, the Zephyrian ships were already repositioning, their sensors focused on the mining facility that was supposed to be empty. They know we're alive, Emma said, her young face set with determination that reminded Sarah of her own expression in the mirror during difficult missions. Good, Sarah replied, checking the charge on her sidearm, and helping Emma gather the equipment they would need to survive the next few hours. Let them come looking. Rex is bringing the Defiance, which means he's bringing Nina, Jake, and the rest of the pack. Emma's eyes widened. The demolitions expert who blew up that Empire supply depot with nothing but mining charges and kitchen timers. That's the one. Your Uncle Jake has some very creative ideas about how to deal with unwelcome visitors. Above them, the first Empire dropship detached from the flagship, beginning its descent toward the facility. But Sarah Chen was no longer thinking about survival. She was thinking about the 40 seconds that had just changed everything. 40 seconds to send a message that would bring the most dangerous collection of human fighters in the galaxy straight into the heart of Empire territory. Admiral Vextar had made his second mistake. His first was leaving them alive. His second was giving them time to call for help. As the Empire forces prepared to search the facility, Sarah and Emma moved deeper into the abandoned mining complex, using the industrial maze to their advantage. They had 6 hours to stay hidden, and then the real fight would begin. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn a lesson that countless other alien civilizations had learned the hard way. Humans were never more dangerous than when they were protecting their families. And Sarah Chen wasn't just any human. She was a mother whose daughter had been threatened, and a military commander whose friends were already on their way. The red dust of Kepler 442 bits would soon run darker with alien blood, and the galaxy would remember the day the Empire made the fatal mistake of underestimating human fury. Fury unleashed. 6 hours later, The mining facility had become a fortress of improvised defenses and clever traps. Emma had used her technical expertise to turn maintenance corridors into choke points, while Sarah's military training had transformed ordinary industrial equipment into deadly obstacles. The Zephyrian search teams had found nothing but empty tunnels and false trails, growing increasingly frustrated as their thermal sensors failed to locate the human fugitives. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scaled fingers drumming against the command console as he watched the search progress with mounting irritation. The facility below should have yielded 2 corpses by now, but his troops kept reporting mechanical failures, sensor malfunctions, and an increasingly disturbing series of accidents that suggested their quarry was very much alive and actively hostile. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely concealed nervousness, "we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching from the outer system. Unknown configuration, but the engine signatures are consistent with human vessels." Vextar's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. 7 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their hulls scarred by countless battles and their weapon systems already charging for combat. The lead vessel was immediately recognizable from Empire intelligence files. The Defiance, captained by the human terrorist Rex Morrison. "How did they find us so quickly?" Vextar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the recycled air of the bridge. "We're monitoring all communication frequencies. No signal left this planet." What the Admiral didn't understand was that humans had learned to communicate in ways that alien technology couldn't easily detect or prevent. Quantum entanglement communicators were just one tool in their arsenal. More importantly, Rex Morrison and his crew had been fighting the Empire for years, developing an intricate network of contacts and safe houses that allowed them to move through contested space like ghosts. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Rex Morrison studied the tactical situation with the calculating gaze of a predator. His ship was heavily modified, its hull covered in scars from dozens of battles with Empire forces. The bridge crew around him represented some of the most dangerous humans in the galaxy, each one carrying personal grudges against the Zephyrian Empire. "Nina, what's the status on those dreadnoughts?" Rex asked, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who had never lost a battle he couldn't afford to lose. Dr. Nina Volkov looked up from her tactical analysis, her Russian accent thick with concentration. 3 heavy cruisers, standard Empire configuration. Shields at full strength, weapon systems active. They have us outgunned 5-1. Rex. Good, Rex replied with a grin that would have terrified most rational beings. I was worried this might be too easy. Jake, please tell me you brought your special toys. Jake Wildcard Thompson looked up from the demolitions console, where he had been preparing what could only charitably be called explosive devices. His methodology involved equal parts military engineering and inspired madness, creating weapons that violated several laws of physics and most concepts of common sense. I've got enough boom to crack a moon, Captain. The question is whether we want to be subtle about this or make a statement that the whole galaxy can hear. Rex considered the options while studying the orbital positions of the Empire ships. Sarah and Emma were still down there somewhere, probably playing cat and mouse with Empire ground forces in the mining facility. Time was running short, and the longer they waited, the more likely it became that his old friend and her brilliant daughter would be discovered. Statement it is, Rex decided. Launch the Trojan packages. What happened next would be studied in military academies across human space for generations to come. The 7 human ships split into attack formations that seemed to make no tactical sense, approaching the Empire fleet from angles that left them exposed to concentrated fire. The Zephyrian gunners opened up with everything they had, filling space with energy beams that should have vaporized the smaller human vessels. Instead, the human ships danced through the weapons fire with an agility that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Their pilots were veterans of 100 impossible battles, humans who had learned to fly by instinct and survived by refusing to accept that certain things were impossible. The Trojan packages, Jake had prepared were asteroid mining charges disguised as debris from destroyed human ships. As the Empire forces focused their attention on the attacking fleet, they failed to notice the small objects drifting closer to their hulls, carried by carefully calculated momentum that made them appear to be simple battle damage. Down on the planet's surface, Sarah and Emma heard the distant thunder of space combat echoing through the facility's metal structure. Through the observation windows, they could see the light show of energy weapons painting the sky in brilliant colors, while the shapes of warships maneuvered in deadly ballet among the stars. "That's Rex," Sarah said with satisfaction, recognizing the tactical patterns of her old friend's fighting style. "He's keeping them busy up there." "Emma, can you access the facility's industrial systems?" Emma was already working at another control panel, her fingers adapting to alien interfaces with the fluidity of a concert pianist. The mining facility's automated systems came online under her direction, massive industrial equipment responding to her commands like obedient pets. "I can control the ore processing systems, the atmospheric processors, and the main drilling array," she reported. "What are you thinking?" Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. "I'm thinking it's time to send Admiral Vextar a message he won't forget. Can you overload the geothermal taps?" Understanding dawned in Emma's eyes. The facility sat directly above a series of volcanic vents that provided geothermal energy for the mining operations. If those systems were destabilized in the right way, the results would be visible from orbit. "It'll take about 10 minutes to build up enough pressure," Emma said, her hands already working to override the safety systems that would normally prevent such a catastrophic failure. "But Mom, this is going to destroy the entire facility." "That's the idea, sweetheart. We just need to make sure we're not in it when it goes." Above them, Jake's Trojan packages reached their targets. The mining charges had been modified with quantum timers that synchronized their detonation to the microsecond, creating shaped explosions that punched through even military-grade armor plating. The first Empire dreadnought shuddered as its shields failed, and its hull was breached in 17 different locations simultaneously. Admiral Vextar felt his ship lurch beneath his feet as emergency klaxons wailed throughout the bridge. Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. His tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic. Life support failing in sectors 12 and 18. "Sir, those weren't conventional weapons. The humans are using mining charges as ship killers." Before Vextar could respond, the second dreadnought exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations as Jake's charges found its main reactor. The shockwave sent ripples through space that could be felt even on the planet's surface, and suddenly the odds had shifted dramatically in favor of the human fleet. Rex watched the destruction with professional satisfaction. "Nina, signal the ground team. Tell them we're making progress up here, but they need to get clear of that facility. Jake's got one more surprise for our scaled friends." The message reached Sarah just as Emma finished her sabotage of the geothermal systems. Warning lights were already flashing throughout the facility as pressure began building in the underground chambers. They had perhaps 5 minutes before the entire complex became a miniature volcano. "Time to go," Sarah said, shouldering their hastily packed equipment. "Emma, is there another way out of here?" "Maintenance shaft 7 leads to the landing pad on the north side," Emma replied, consulting the facility schematics she had memorized. "But Mom, there are Empire troops between us and the exit." Sarah checked her weapon and smiled grimly. "Not for long there aren't." What followed was a running battle through the industrial maze of the mining facility. Sarah moved with the lethal efficiency of a veteran soldier, while Emma used her knowledge of the facility's systems to create diversions and obstacles that confused and separated their pursuers. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut at crucial moments. Atmospheric processors vented choking gases into strategic corridors, and mining equipment activated at precisely the wrong times for anyone wearing Empire armor. The Zephyrian troops found themselves fighting not just 2 humans, but the entire facility itself. Every system seemed to have turned against them, creating a hostile environment where their technological advantages were negated by clever sabotage and intimate knowledge of the terrain. They reached the landing pad just as the geothermal systems reached critical pressure. Behind them, the facility began to shake with earth tremors that grew stronger by the second. Emma's sabotage had created a chain reaction that would turn the entire mining complex into a massive explosion visible from orbit. Above them, the space battle had reached its climax. The surviving Empire dreadnought was trying to retreat, but Rex Morrison's fleet had surrounded it like a pack of wolves. Jake's final surprise was a cluster of antimatter charges disguised as escape pods, and when they detonated against the retreating ship's engines, the explosion lit up the system like a second sun. Admiral Vextar found himself aboard a crippled ship with failing life support and no hope of escape. As his bridge systems failed around him, he received one final transmission from the human fleet. Rex Morrison's voice crackled through the static with unmistakable satisfaction. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Defiance. Admiral, you made a mistake when you targeted Sarah Chen and her daughter. Humans don't forget, and we don't forgive. Consider this a lesson in why you should never threaten our families." The mining facility exploded with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon, sending a pillar of fire and molten rock thousands of meters into the atmosphere. The shockwave was visible from space, a clear message to anyone monitoring the system that humans had been here and left their mark. Sarah and Emma watched the destruction from the safety of Rex's rescue shuttle, which had landed just in time to extract them from the landing pad. As they lifted off, Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "Did we win?" she asked quietly. Sarah looked out at the wreckage of the Empire fleet, then at her daughter's determined face. "We sent a message, sweetheart. Word of this is going to spread across the galaxy. The Empire thought they could eliminate us quietly, but instead they created a symbol of human resistance." Rex joined them in the passenger compartment, his weathered face split by a satisfied grin. 3 dreadnoughts destroyed, minimal casualties on our side, and Vextar's reputation in ruins. I'd call that a pretty good day's work. As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, leaving behind the burning wreckage of Admiral Vextar's ambitions, Sarah Chen held her daughter close and smiled. The Empire had left them for dead, thinking that 40 seconds wasn't enough time to matter. They had been catastrophically wrong. 40 seconds had been enough to call for help, and 6 hours had been enough to turn a death trap into a funeral pyre for Empire arrogance. Across the galaxy, other worlds under Empire occupation would hear this story and remember that humans never stayed down when knocked down. The war was far from over, but today humanity had reminded the galaxy why they were never to be underestimated. The Chen family was safe, the Empire had lost face and ships, and somewhere in the depths of space, other human resistance cells were already planning their next strike. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity was done being diplomatic.